Wink News begins with breaking news.
Wink News is on top of breaking news on Sanibel. A police officer was shot during a traffic stop that turned into a drive-by shooting.
Wink News just got these pictures into the newsroom of the cruiser the officer was inside at the time of the shooting. You can see the glass shattered on one of the windows. The shooter is in custody right now. People who live near the scene on Periwinkle Way called into Wink News after hearing gunshots.
I'm not leaving my house or wanting to go out. I ran down and deadbolted the door because a lot of times I don't lock my door as much. You know, you have this feeling of safety out here on the island.
Wink News has team coverage on this breaking story on Sanibel and at Lee Memorial Hospital. The Night Beat's Ellen Thalls just got on the island. She joins us now live from the dunes with the latest. Ellen?
Yeah, well, it all started here just off of Periwinkle, where an officer was doing a routine traffic stop that ended very poorly. I want to show you some of that scene now. This is the first look you are getting. This is where that white cruiser, that is the vehicle you showed pictures of just moments ago. That is the car that the officer was in when he was shot at. So the police chief tells me that he was doing a routine stop. He was in that vehicle at the time. Another vehicle drove up, shot at the car, hit the officer, then sped off to the Dunes neighborhood. There at the Dunes neighborhood, that's when the suspect engaged in gunfire again with deputies and officers. He fled for a second time, barricaded himself inside of his Dunes home, and that's where he finally surrendered. So again, that officer was shot. He was taken to Lee Memorial. That suspect is in custody. This has been an unbelievable night on typically a very, very quiet island. Let's go ahead and hear from the retired police chief about tonight's incident.
We know that this can happen. It's one of the things that we're always afraid of. It's always in the back of our mind, so we want to make sure that all officers, no matter what department they're from, that they take all the precautions necessary and just be safe.
Yeah, and there the chief was referencing that there have been several area shootings in the last week or two involving deputies, officers, any law enforcement officials, and he was just saying that we always tell our guys just to be safe out there. And again, that officer was shot and is at Lee Memorial. That suspect was also shot in that gunfire over in the Dunes neighborhood. We have not heard yet about his condition. Also, none of the identities of anyone involved in tonight's incident have been released. We will, of course, keep you updated as soon as we know more. Live in Sanibel, Ellen Thalls, Wink News Now.
Ellen, thanks. Wink News continues our breaking news team coverage with Nicole Valdez. She's on the island near Periwinkle and Bailey Streets. Nicole, you talked to people who were trying to get home at the time?
Lindsay, yeah, people in this neighborhood were not allowed back in for several hours here tonight as police focused their investigation on two scenes inside the Dunes neighborhood here behind me. Now, according to Sanibel police, this is where the suspect fled after that initial shooting. That person fired more shots when they got into that neighborhood here. Now, we have spoken to people who, again, live in this neighborhood, also some who heard the gunshots, and even some business owners around the area, all of them very concerned for their friends, their co-workers, and of course their family here.
It's unprecedented because I've lived on this island my whole life and I've never seen this many police in one spot. It's a little scary. Yeah, it was in my neighborhood. My dad is home. He's elderly, and I was fearing for his safety, and still don't know how he is. So
you haven't been able to call him or talk to him or anything?
Haven't been able to get a hold of him.
Now, as retired police chief Tomlinson told us, this is the first time an officer has ever been shot on Sanibel here. But for those who have homes within this scene here behind me, their shock was to learn that the suspect in this case lives on the same street they do.
He went to his house back in his neighborhood, which is also mine. So, it's just scary knowing someone like that would do something like that lives in proximity to you.
Now, we want to remind you the suspect in this case has still not been identified by Sanibel police. However, we do know that he was apprehended inside his home just after this all happened. Now, Sanibel police and LCSO are still inside right now. As you can see, there's only about 2 deputy cars here left, but they are still investigating that home, looking to find more information on exactly what caused this scene out here tonight. When we get more information on this suspect, however, make sure to count on Wink News. We'll make sure to let you know once we do get that information. For now, we're live on Sanibel. I'm Nicole Valdez, Wink News now.
All right, Nicole, thank you. And the mayhem on Sanibel tonight had many people on the island worried for their safety. Wink News talked to one woman who said she heard 5 to 6 gunshots, saw police cars fly by her home, and then hunkered down.
I have a 12-year-old, and he's like, Mom, get away from the window that's on the side of the, closer to the more activity. We've been camping out in their room on the other side of the house.
Let's get live right now to Wink News reporter Andrew Scheinthal, who's live at Lee Memorial Hospital where that officer was taken earlier tonight. Andrew, what do you know?
Well, Lindsay, sources are telling us that officer was brought here to Lee Memorial Health Hospital, part of the Lee Health system. And, this is the second time now in about a week that a member of the law enforcement community had to be brought here to the hospital. The first one happening off of I-75 last Monday. Then, of course, the incident taking place tonight. I've spoken with ER doctors and trauma surgeons in the past with other stories we have done about how they prepare for situations like this. They really treat it like anyone else who is coming in, but they do acknowledge, especially when it's a law enforcement official, and that there is emotion behind it within not just the community, but the staff themselves. They recognize that, and they really do treat this with that sensitivity behind it. But we get, again, sources telling Wink News that officer was brought here to Lee Memorial Hospital. We're still working to get more information. Once we do get that, we'll be sure to share it with you online and on the air. Live in Fort Myers, Andrew Scheinthal, Wink News now.
All right, Andrew, thank you. Meanwhile, the Sanibel Causeway was shut down for a while during the investigation tonight, and that caused major backups near the toll booth. Many people were trying to get home and across the causeway, but police had it blocked during the investigation.
Tonight's attack on an officer is the 5th violent exchange between law enforcement and suspects within the last 2 weeks. A suspect in one of the other attacks was in the courtroom this morning after he shot at deputies just last week. The judge ordered Raunis Sagis to stay away from the Pine Manor address where he shot at deputies on Wednesday. Witnesses say Sagis was threatening to kill his girlfriend and ran after the exchange of gunfire. He was shot in the leg and found hours after the shooting. Sagis was out on bond for a similar case at the same address when the shooting happened. He now faces 2 assault on an officer charges and an aggravated assault charge. On Thursday, a deputy found this man foaming from the mouth, lying on a Pine Manor ditch. When Jose Lugo woke up, investigators say he spit on that deputy and started fighting her. He faces charges for battery on an officer. And on Election Day, this was the scene on the side of I-75 after a man attacked deputies. Investigators say Brian Rivera had abnormal strength when biting and punching deputies. 5 people subdued him. And this is the most high profile. A suspect pictured savagely beating a deputy on the ground, according to the sheriff. An armed man saw the struggle and shot and killed Edward Strother.
And we want to get you back out live to the scene on Sanibel, where again around 8 o'clock tonight, an officer had stopped somebody while he was in his car for that traffic stop. A second car drove by, shooting out the window at the officer. From there, the suspect exchanged fire with police in the Dunes neighborhood. Both the suspect and officer, who have not been identified at this point, were shot. We don't know how either one of them are doing. Our crews are in Sanibel and at Lee Memorial working to gather the very latest. The police chief telling us tonight, never in Sanibel's history has an officer been shot. That until earlier this evening. You can count on Wink News for continuing live coverage throughout the evening.
Also breaking, another ambush-style attack on a police officer, but this one in St. Louis. Investigators say a police sergeant was hospitalized in critical condition, but is expected to survive. They say the officer was shot twice in the face. A manhunt is underway for that shooter.
And another manhunt is underway in San Antonio after a different police officer was shot and killed right outside of district headquarters. The police chief says Detective Benjamin Marconi died while he was writing a traffic ticket just outside of police headquarters. He was sitting in his cruiser when another car pulled up behind him. A man then walked up to the window and fired 2 bullets into the officer's head. Marconi was a 20-year veteran of the department. The whole community's rattled by the shooting.
Most families will be celebrating the holidays. SAPD will be burying one of its own because of an ultimate act of cowardice by a suspect who will be caught and brought to justice.
Police say the shooter's described as a man in his 20s or 30s with a slim build. They say he's driving a black sedan with chrome rims and tinted windows. Count on Wink News to let you know when that man is caught.
And coming up in the full forecast, temperatures already plummeting for tonight. We're actually starting off on the cold side tomorrow. The details coming up.
And Wink News is staying on top of breaking news on Sanibel. A police officer has been shot. You can see live pictures of the scene now. The suspect is in custody after a shootout with officers. Multiple Wink News crews are working to get you the latest and newest information. We'll have more of that right after the break on the Wink News Night Beat.